Hey y'all, welcome to Midweek Minis, the show that is changing yet again. Well, not necessarily changing, right, Leah?
Yeah.
That's my wife, Leah Lawrence.
Hey.
I'm Mitch Lawrence, and it's not necessarily changing. We're just talking about something different again, aren't we?
Yeah.
All right, well, what are we going to do first? Are we going to have a personal story?
Yeah, we actually got a listener email with a personal ghosty story, so I'm going to go ahead and read that.
Please do.
Exciting. I love these. So if anybody else has one that they want to share with us, please email it to us at southernspiritspodcast@gmail.com, and I'd like to share it with the rest of our listeners on this ever-changing midweek mini show.
All right.
All right.
You heard it here first.
Yes. Okay, this one's from Jacqueline. It says, "Hello, greetings from Denver, Colorado."
Hello.
Hi. I've heard Mitch mention before that you two would like to visit Colorado, and I can't recommend my home state enough. We have some of the best craft breweries, creative distilleries, and of course a rich history of strange and creepy stories. Here's mine. Hopefully it's not too long. Smiley face.
All right, bring it on.
10 years ago, I spent the summer working as the baker at a guest ranch in the mountains. I won't say the name in case they don't want to be pegged as a haunted destination, but I'll include it at the end of this message for you two if you want to look it up later. I do. Thank you.
Okay.
My kitchen was located in a big stone house, which was located up the road from the main ranch area. A few of the staff, including myself, arrived at the ranch to begin training before the rest of the staff as well as the guests would arrive. According to the staff who had worked there in previous years, a ghost named Charlie haunted the house I was working as well as living in. Supposedly, Charlie was a house servant who died in the house and was buried somewhere on the land nearby. Of course, the first night I spent in the stone house there was an insane thunderstorm. One of my fellow coworkers, who was also staying in the house, was supposed to show up that day, but as she lived nearby, it wasn't a surprise that she hadn't arrived yet. I was in the haunted fucking house during a storm by myself. I was terrified, but tired enough from working that day that I eventually fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up to someone standing in my bedroom doorway. I thought it was my coworker who was supposed to arrive, and I said her name. The figure just stood there without responding, then shut my door. Let's just say it was not my coworker. The following summer, one of the girls I became close with on the ranch took over the position as the baker. We were still good friends, and I took a day trip to visit her at the stone house. She told me that she had a Charlie experience as well. She was finishing up in the kitchen and getting ready for her afternoon break. All of the guests in the house were gone, participating in ranch activities. Suddenly, she saw something out of the corner of her eye near the entrance to the dining room. Again, there were no guests in the house at that time. She rushed over to open the door and caught a glimpse of gray feet as they turned up the staircase to the second floor. Dude. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed my stories. I started listening to the podcast almost 2 years ago now while I was going through a divorce. You cheered me up then, and you're cheering me up now during this pandemic, along with my super hot, wonderful boyfriend who isn't a narcissistic asshole. Well. Cheers, Jacqueline. Yes, girl, shed that dead weight. Yes, ma'am.
That makes one of us.
Snaps and claps for the hot new boyfriend. What?
I don't like the new hotness. Bring back the old hotness.
I think the old hotness was a narcissistic asshole.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought we were talking about me.
No.
I apologize. That shows my narcissism.
Exactly.
Oh, well, yeah, good on you, though. Get out of anything toxic.
Seriously. If you're
idea.
in a relationship that isn't working for both of you, bye.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And also, about the gray feet, just no.
Ew.
Just
no thanks.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
I'm good without gray feet.
Nope.
Mine are perfectly pale, and that's the way I aim to. Actually, they're kind of gray, now that I think about it.
They better not be gray. That's like a sign of diabetes, isn't it?
Well, no. They're not like discolored gray. They're just, they haven't seen sunlight in a millennium gray.
They're an ashy pink.
There you go. No, they don't need to be moisturized. They're fine. They're not fine. They're gray. I don't know. I've had probably 200 popsicles in the last 2 weeks. I can't get enough of those things. Maybe I'm getting diabetes.
Yeah, that's a very distinct possibility.
My feet have
saying.
turned gray in the past 2 weeks.
They haven't.
No.
His feet are fine.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're fine. He's wearing Argyle socks at the moment.
I have feeling in all of my toes.
Okay, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good.
Yeah.
It's a good start.
So far, so good.
Good to know.
Mm-hmm. So what are we going to talk about this week, Leah, after the gray feet?
Well, we just watched a documentary, and I thought we could talk about that.
Okay. That sounds good to me. I enjoyed that documentary. Do you know what the name of it was?
Nope.
Okay. I just had it up. Let me see if I can
I
find
was just like,
again.
you're the one that found it and put it on. So
Well, it just came on Netflix I don't know, maybe today? I don't know. It's very recent. It's called Have a Good Trip, Adventures in Psychedelics. It's a bunch of celebrities talking about themselves taking mushrooms and acid and just different psychedelics in general and the experiences they had. And it was enjoyable.
yeah, it was a really interesting documentary. I would recommend watching it if you're interested in that kind of thing. And even if you're not, it's just a bunch of celebrities talking about some interesting things that happened to them. So
Yeah.
Nick Offerman is the host of it, and you see a lot of different comedians and celebrities and whatnot. And Sting gets interviewed a lot. I don't know. It was a really neat documentary. I enjoyed it.
My favorite part is that Paul Scheer tells his story about taking mushrooms in Amsterdam, and Rob Corddry plays Paul Scheer. Then Rob Corddry tells his mushroom story, and Paul Scheer plays Rob Corddry. It's trippy and it's fun, and it was just an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and they've animated a lot of it, and they did some interviews with, I think Deepak Chopra was one of the people, and they had some other psychologists and psychiatrists and all of that stuff talking about the different ways that those chemicals affect your brain and all of that stuff, and I just found it very interesting. To me, one of the things that they talked about really early on in the documentary that I was kind of interested by is the fact that every living thing that they've introduced acid to has a reaction to it, which is weird because a lot of the times substances that work in a particular way for humans or dogs or whatever, that same pharmacology doesn't work across all species.
Yeah.
And I just find that really interesting that there's a substance like that continually, shows similar effects throughout all species. That's just weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting because, God, what was it that they said they tested it on? Because, it has those old after-school special bullshit movies in it that tell you about how all drugs are bad and
so they've actually, and I've seen
crazy.
I've seen a lot of different studies like that, but they've tested it on spiders, they've tested it on mice, all the lab animals, elephants. I mean, if you name it, they've probably tested LSD on it at some point because the 60s were weird and,
Yep.
That's about it. The 60s were weird. So yeah, I just find it very fascinating that there's a substance like that works across the species barrier because our anatomy and biology is completely different from a spider's. So why the fuck does that work the same way?
Yeah.
It's very strange, and I don't know if that's just me picking up on a weird thing, and I like to obsess about tiny details like that, but I don't know. I just find it very interesting.
It is. It's just you that finds that super weird. That's it. For me, it was the fact that watching that and talking to the few people that I have talked to about psychedelics, because I've never done psychedelics of any kind. I've honestly been far too scared to do it.
Yeah.
But everyone in that documentary and everyone I've ever spoken to in real life who's done it, I have never heard of anyone having a bad experience. I really haven't. They'll say, yeah, I had a little bit of a bad trip here, but overall, I've never had a bad experience with it.
Ben Stiller clearly didn't like it.
Yeah, Ben Stiller called
He
Jerry.
was the one real square guy in the whole thing that was just like, yeah, no, I'm never doing that again. I did it once. It was a bad choice. No thanks.
Yeah, Ben Stiller. That's right. There was that one. I forgot about that. You're
Ben
right.
Stiller was not feeling it.
Yeah, he said he got high. Well, Jerry Stiller just died.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's poignant that we watch this part, I guess, today. Because Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira were filming an episode of The Love Boat, and Ben Stiller was hanging out with a friend, did either acid or mushrooms, I can't remember.
It was acid.
Called Jerry to be like, look, I'm freaking out because I did acid. And Jerry was like, I don't even know what that is, but it's going to be okay. Just calm down, you know. It was very funny. Yeah, it's very... the documentary was obviously very pro psychedelics,
Mm-hmm.
which, again, everyone I've ever talked to is pro psychedelics who've taken them, you know. I still don't believe that my brain chemistry is exactly wired for it. I was definitely scared to try them in younger life because just weed would make me freak out.
Yeah,
So-
you are not good on marijuana, and that's the only thing that I've ever seen you on. Other
I'm
than,
not
like,
great
alcohol.
on it, but like there is a threshold. I could have a tiny bit and have a great time, but if I have just a tiny bit more than that tiny bit, there is a good chance. It's not always going to happen, but there's a good chance that I'm not going to freak out, but I'm going to be like
paranoid motherfucker.
There it is. Yeah. See, I mean, I
get
a little scared.
You get like withdrawn and paranoid and terrified that everybody knows everything about you.
Accurate.
That is like your number one reaction.
I'll give a perfect example of this, and it's not something I realized until I was telling someone the story years after it happened. So I was in AP English my senior year of high school, okay? I think I've told you this story before.
You have.
So at my high school, when you were a senior, if you had a B average, you did not have to take your final exam in the class. So for the third and fourth semester, if you averaged out to a B, you didn't have to take a final. I had like a 79 in the class overall, so I had to take the final, but I was one of two people out of the whole AP class to have to take it. I knew that I could do terrible, really, really, really bad on the exam and still have a high C on it, you know, that kind of, or like a high B in the class, whatever. I don't remember because it was 15 years ago almost, but I knew I would be okay. So my parents were out of town. I smoked a tiny bit of a bowl before I went to take the exam. And remember, I didn't drive in high school, so somebody picked me up. And I got there and I was freaking out. And I was convinced that everybody knew because the AP class took their exam with the regular class. And in the regular class, nobody had to be average. Like the regular class was harder than the AP class from what I understood. I don't know. Anyway, there are 90 people there. I'm one of two people from my class taking it, but everybody else was there. And I was convinced that everybody knew I was fucked up and there was something wrong. And like I said, I didn't realize until years later when I was telling someone else the story that the reason I thought that was because people were coming up to me just saying, hey, and I would go, I'm high. Leave me alone. I'm high. Just, you know that. I know that you know that. Just leave me alone. Right? Nobody knew. Everybody would like walk away from me. And anyway, I did very well on the exam. I got an 85 on it because it was an essay. I still remember the question too, Leah.
Of course you do.
The question was compare Heart of Darkness and Equus. That was it. And I have to handwrite an essay. And I remember staring at that question for a good 30 minutes and going, what the fuck does this mean? I don't understand. And then I remember just like, got it. Like something clicked in my brain and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And then we got our grades back later. I got an 85 on it. I remember that. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that happens to me on weed. So psychedelics are a terrible fucking idea. But I'm also much more comfortable with the person I am now. So I feel like maybe, but I also I don't know that it's a good idea for me.
Yeah, I've just, I have really bad anxiety problems. Everybody knows that. I've talked about it before. I have social anxiety disorder and I have some OCD tendencies. And so there's just been a lot of research lately about how psychedelics can be used to treat anxiety and depression and that kind of thing. And I find that interesting. And if there was like a controlled with a therapist way to experience something like that, I would definitely be up for it.
Yeah.
But just me in my house by myself, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
For one, it's illegal and I don't need to be fired. Thank you kindly. Or arrested.
Well, see, I don't know how much these kind of psychedelics stay in your system on a drug test.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
I still don't. nope. We have a mortgage to pay. I'm good. But if it were to present itself in a legal way that I could be treated with someone who knew what was going on and how to help me through that experience, I would be willing to do it. But I also know that similarly to you, weed's never been a problem for me. I've never gotten like weird. Like I said, I did it a few times in college. It was fun. I giggled, whatever. It's not super awesome or anything, but like, I mean, you know, it makes me giggle and it's fun.
Yeah.
If it were legal in our state, I'd be totally down to try it again. But as it is not, whatever.
Yeah. You've never tried it illegally, Leah. Never.
Oh, it was definitely illegal when I was doing it in college. Everybody knows that. It's fun.
I'm just saying. You're putting on quite a show here.
But my point is, I don't remember what my fucking point is. Oh, yes, I do. I've had a lot of anti-anxiety medicines fuck me up, and I don't know that my brain chemistry, like you were saying, works the same as some other people. So, like, I've been on SSRIs that, like, make everybody else feel like they're just a fan-fucking-tastic day.
Right.
For me, it made me literally have no emotions at all for 2.5 months.
That sounds awesome to me.
It was not. At first it was. I was like, hell yeah, I'm not crying at everything. And then it just sort of morphed into I literally have no emotions whatsoever. I wasn't happy about anything. I wasn't sad about anything. I literally had no feelings towards anything at all. And I almost failed a couple of classes because of it. Like there was no sense of urgency. There was no sense of anything. It was just existence, and it was awful. And then I've had medications that are supposed to, you know, like calm you down or whatever. Like there's a particular anti-nausea medication that makes me cry hysterically every time I've ever taken it.
Yeah.
That's not a side effect that anybody warns you about or says what but yeah, if I take Phenergan, which is an anti-nausea medication they'll give after surgery and that kind of thing, I will cry hysterically in a corner for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm interested in the experience, but I'm also terrified of that going in a bad way, you know.
Like you were saying, if it was controlled under a doctor's care or something, I would absolutely try it. 100%. But again, not like, here's a prescription, take it home. Like, be there
I need
monitoring
a controlled environment with a babysitter.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I would 100% do it if that were the case. Because anyone I've ever heard has always told me, be with people you trust, which they say all this in the documentary too.
Yeah.
Be with people you trust. Don't have any strangers or any likelihood of strangers showing up, period. It's a good idea to be just like in the woods, in a safe environment in the woods, like a bonfire or something like that.
Oh no, we're not bringing fire into this.
With people you trust, yet again, because they do. Everyone that I knew who tried it said, don't sit in one room. Don't be in a tiny closed-in room. That's a bad idea for most of them. I don't know. I don't know how I would feel, but I know that just a little bit too much weed has a good chance of making me go, I don't think I like this anymore. But then again, there are some times when I've smoked and I just watch YouTube for like 4 hours. You know, like Reggie Watts videos. Oh my God. Watching a Reggie Watts performance stoned out of your mind is amazing. And then you realize that YouTube has like 90 hours of Reggie Watts stuff. And that's just, you know, that's a fucking awesome thing. Don't know how I would do on Psychedelics with Reggie Watts with his fancy sweaters and big hair and shit. I don't know.
He was also in that documentary.
He was.
But also to me, and he was chunky Reggie Watts, not skinny Reggie Watts.
Mm-hmm. And Chunky Ron Funches and
the Chunky Funches.
Anthony Bourdain was in it, and Carrie Fisher before they died.
Yeah, so this documentary has clearly been filmed for a while, but I don't know. I really liked it. It was fun. Another thing that I always find kind of strange is that everybody experiences really similar things and talks about some of the similar things, how that affects them. And especially, like, I've listened to different podcasts where people talk about going on ayahuasca trips and how I mean, just a lot of the imagery that everybody describes is so similar, even between shows that aren't related at all, people that don't know each other. They always describe very similar sort of motifs that keep coming up,
Yeah.
Being one with the world, nature, we're all interconnected, that kind of thing. And I think that's a really interesting... I'm sorry.
Uh-oh. It's so interesting. Leah is yawning and hiccuping through it.
Y'all, I worked an extra long amount of time today, so I deserve to be tired. Just putting that out there.
You can do whatever makes you happy.
It doesn't make me happy, but over time, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, maybe some psychedelics.
No. If there's one thing my stressed out ass during quarantine does not need, it's to be tripping balls. Just gonna save that for some far-flung future date when therapy has integrated psychedelics.
Speaking of that, one thing in the documentary that only one person said, but I was interested in it because I've never heard this part before. But they said that they have heard or read that psychedelics were beneficial to people who were like on their deathbed.
Oh yeah, there's a whole documentary.
I've never heard that before.
There's a whole documentary on, it used to be on Netflix, I'm not sure if it still is, but it's called DMT, the God Particle. Mm-hmm. And it goes through a whole thing about DMT, how it's used therapeutically in like hospice situations and that kind of thing. Yeah. It's a very interesting topic. And a lot of... Okay, we're getting hippy-dippy here, but they're called death doulas, but it's basically... So a doula is someone that helps a woman give birth. A death doula is a person that goes into a situation where there's a chronic illness or, end-of-life situation.
Kind of hospice,
kind of. But they're a person that will help you get all of your affairs in order, help sort of plan how you want your death to go. Mm-hmm. Someone that kind of emotionally eases you into that kind of thing so you can have a more peaceful, just loving, full experience at the end. Mm-hmm. Some of those people have incorporated using that kind of thing in their end-of-life treatment for clients. And it's a very interesting topic. And apparently it's super helpful with just relieving that anxiety and allowing someone to be peaceful in the end of in stages of their life.
Because that's what they said. It goes from, again, I have nothing backing this up because this is the only time I've heard of it, except for what you just said. Mm-hmm. But they said it takes the fear and anxiety of death and makes the person, generally, it makes the person realize that, okay, this is just natural. It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
So it makes them more relaxed and able to accept the death that they know is coming soon. So, like, you were saying a far-flung future. I'm like, that is the perfect time to try mushrooms. If I'm just sitting there dying, I'm like, fucking bring it on. Yeah. I mean, why not?
I'd be totally down for that.
If nothing else, it will freak me out to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to do it now. Fuck this.
Bye, y'all.
And just like get out of here. I mean, that is a win-win situation.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And I really think that that's something that, when used along in conjunction with other, practices like hospice care or palliative care, why not? I mean, it's not like they're gonna have some kind of adverse effect 20 years in the future. Mm-hmm. They're dying anyway. If it can help someone be more at ease mentally and spiritually, we can go for it. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass here because I've seen now 2 documentaries about it.
Yeah, and it's being used. They're researching using it for people with mental health issues as well, which I've heard that before.
Specifically PTSD. There's been a lot of research about using different psychoactive substances along with therapy for PTSD treatment for especially, people that come back from war zones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, oh goodness, I just inhaled some saliva somehow. I'm so sorry, everyone. But, I would recommend going to see that documentary. Let me make sure of the name of it one more time, because I already fucking forgot.
And it is really fun. It's not like super serious like we've been kind of talking about. No, it's just a really fun romp. And anything with Carrie Fisher talking about her being naked on a beach is hilarious. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's worth the price of admission.
It's called Have a Good Trip, Adventures in Psychedelics. And yes, Carrie Fisher and Rosie Perez both talk about their tits incredibly in that movie. It's pretty great. So I recommend it, if nothing else, just for that.
Yep.
So y'all go watch that if you feel like it. This might just turn into documentary review.
I'm fine with that.
Wednesday.
You know how I love a documentary.
I fucking love documentaries too. Next week, Free Solo. We'll watch that. It's the mountain climbing movie that won the Oscar.
Can we just watch Tim's Vermeer again?
All right, we'll watch Tim's Vermeer, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye, y'all.